Tis a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Mac and Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald with you. Oh, we've got another good guest coming your way right now. He has been a voice in the Philadelphia Eagle media stream for many years. Still doing work for SiriusXM NFL. His Inside the Birds podcast, very well received in this town. I got no issues, no problems talking Birds football with Adam Caplan. He's been doing it a long time. I've known Adam a long time, so John, we're both very happy to have him here on the show. Hey, how you been, buddy? It's been a while.
I know, guys. Good to talk to you. Jody and I did some hosting on NFL Radio together, man, at least over a decade ago, I'm guessing, since we started there in 2004. But no, it's good to be with you guys as we get through May here. And what we're not going to have is OTAs here for the Eagles, unfortunately, as you know. Not going to have that rookie mini camp. I was hoping we would have it. I used to love going to these practices, John. I used to love going there. I know they don't mean a whole lot.
We all do, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I for the first time in, I think, 18 years, I didn't have a training camp tour. I was dying not having it last summer. But hopefully things get better and we get back to work like usual.
And that's why I'm thrilled to have Adam on. Hardest working man in show business, not only with the Eagles, but also the NFL. So he's got contacts all over the league. And it's interesting to me, Adam, because before we get into the draft stuff, the current Eagle stuff, I haven't had you on yet here on Birds 365. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about the coaching staff in the shift. Sure. And we don't know a lot about Nick Sirianni, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen. What are we going to see? And what do you think this shift away from Doug Peterson to this young, energetic coaching staff, what was behind it?
All right, John, let's start from the latter that you were talking about. So Peterson obviously is older than Sirianni. Doug played in the league. Nick did not. Nick's a former receiver. Peterson is a former quarterback. So there's some differences in philosophy and how things will be done. What we reported on Inside the Birds, really, I'm thinking 48 hours after Sirianni was hired, I think it's still true. The offense is going to be West Coast based in terms of route running and philosophy, a lot of run after the catch, timing based throws. And the fact, our Jason Ivano does a show for us called Q&A with Quentin Michael. He had a really good note on their show yesterday that dropped, and you can get that on our Inside the Birds platform on any one you want. Jason talks about it in terms of the routes that are going to be out there. There are going to be some option routes. You got to hear Jason explaining. He's got some great intel. Remember, Jason was an assistant receivers coach for the Eagles last season, so he's got some great information. And what Jeff Mosher and I learned is that this is more going to be a West Coast system. Now, I like the point Jeff had made on one of our recent shows. He said, listen, if you look at this staff, Sirianni, obviously, with Nyheim Hines, Steichen with Austin Eckler, well, this is the type of the offense you're going to have. There's good versatility is going to be big here with the running backs. Not only with Miles Sanders, but with Kenny Gainwell, who could have a pretty significant role if he could learn the offense pretty well and handle pass protection. He could actually play a little bit more than I expected. We had said that we didn't think Boston Scott would have the role that he had last year. I think that's probably going to happen. That Jordan Howard's back, but Gainwell's a guy who could cut into that. We'll see what happens. But, John, answer your question. Things are going to be different here. Yeah, Doug Peterson ran a West Coast scheme because that's what terminology told you, but it's not the old school Mike Shanahan offense. This offense will look like more Shanahan than Andy Reid.
We talk about the turnover in the staff.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of guys who were left over from when Doug Peterson became the coach. But when that happened, a whole bunch of coaches stuck around. That Doug kept a lot of Chips guys, so it wasn't a massive transformation. This is different. This side of Jeff Stoutland, all these guys are newbies, and all the players are going to have to learn the intricacies of not only the system, but how to relate and work with their coaches and a lot. And we're doing so in still a pandemic offseason. Maybe not as drastic as last year, but a pandemic offseason just the same. How difficult is this transition going to be?
It's going to be hard because we talk on Inside the Birds, Jody, about this type of offense that they have. Accuracy is always important for a quarterback, but especially so because of the option routes and timing routes and throwing with anticipation and timing. This is going to be challenging for Joe Flacco, who will be the backup, and Ertz who's going to be the starter. This is going to be hard, and it's going to be challenging. Not getting on the field, and don't forget, right now, unless they sign a veteran receiver, the top 5 projected receivers for this football team will be 25 years or younger. This has not happened before with the Eagles, really going back over a decade. This is going to be new, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're asking younger players to learn a new offense. That's probably different from what they've learned. It's definitely different, Jody, than the Doug Peterson offense. So it's a great question. And I know, we're hearing all these stories about, the Eagles don't think they're ways away. They might be a playoff team. I mean, okay, but I don't see that at all. I was fooled in 17. I'll be the first to admit it. I didn't see that coming, what we wound up happening, what we saw. But this is a team that's in transition. The Eagles could say whatever the heck they want to say. We all know where this team is going. This is a transition year for this team. And by the way, they're going to be very, very young, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and one of the things about having young players, and I think a fair criticism, Adam, of Doug Peterson's staff was developing players. I don't think it was great the past couple of seasons. So from your intel around the league and Jeff's as well, what do you think of the staff from a developmental standpoint? Can they get these guys, a lot of them, talk about the receivers, forget about Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, you got to get back on the right track. Even J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Travis Fulgham. You mentioned how young this receiving group is as a whole. Quez Watkins, Sean Hightower, a lot of young receivers. How is this staff, you think, are they going to be better developing players?
Yeah, it's funny you say this, John, because this is something we brought up on Inside the Berth for the final 2 years of Peterson's tenure with the Eagles, is the lack of player development. We don't have time to go through every position, but if you really looked at the final 2 years of Peterson's tenure, very few players were developed. It's just a fact. Now, there was a knock from a team source that said that there was too much self-preservation from the coaches, not a lot of willingness to play certain players. There's always this pull and push, John, as you know, with front offices and coaches. Front offices want the guys to play, the young guys to play, and the coaches sometimes want older players to play or guys who just get it and they're not going to stand for the mistakes. And I get both sides. But to answer your question, what I had heard from a source who's close to Sirianni, who coached with him with the Colts, is player development is going to be big with him. And there are two things that he does that's really good. You know how coaches talk about competition? It's just a buzzword when they come in. This is actually the way that the guy is. This source has been right in everything he's told me, so that he will not stand for guys not competing, and he's going to get in their face. And one of the things that really hurt Doug Peterson is the lack of accountability with his players. They took advantage of him sometimes. He didn't hold them accountable enough. 17 he did. When there was pressure on him, I think he felt the pressure to improve. But the lack of pressure on the players to be better was a problem. And his ability to connect with people and players. Another thing this person told me is that he's really big on connecting and getting to know people. It's not fake. It actually really means a lot to him. And their coaches, by the way. He coaches his coaches. Another thing that's underrated for coaching is the ability to reach your coaches and get on them. There was a lack of accountability with this coaching staff the last couple of years. I'm going to call it out like it is because this came from some pretty good sources. This has got to be better. Doug Peterson, for all that he accomplished, things got away from him in certain areas, and I don't think he really realized that, but certain people close to the situation did.
Adam, I'm going to ask you to tap into your sources and look at your football crystal ball, as a matter of fact. John and I both agree that Landon Dickerson was the most intriguing, debatable, and potentially season-turning pick that the Eagles made in this past draft. We all know the story, as many injuries as he's had, but people love his game and love his attitude. And if he can stay on the field, he's got a chance to be great. Well, how about as soon as things start? Let's say your sources on the Eagle offensive line tell you, and you don't get a chance to see as much workout time as you used to. It is the COVID NFL. So you can't judge for yourself how good this kid looks. As soon as he shows up, you get word, your sources tell you, oh, this guy's a beat. We can't get around him. His own teammates who are working against him in practice go, he's a mountain. We can't move him. He's unbelievable. I know this is optimistic, but sometimes we go there. If that's the case, is he redshirting this year anyway? The Eagles have a starting center. They got two starting guards. What are they going to do if he's their best offensive lineman in camp?
I would be shocked because the guy's coming off an ACL reconstruction. It just wouldn't compute. I'll say this. Teams tell me without the injuries, of course, you can't take them away. But if you're just basing on tape, character, and competitiveness, he's a top 20 player. Mosher and I heard that based on our sourcing, there were basically 17 first-round grades for this draft from teams we spoke with. That means that if you just grade on on whatever your grading scale is, the other 15 players should be second-round picks, but 32 picks have to be made. He was somewhere around that 17 number. This guy is an absolute superstar and a talent, and in competitiveness and leadership, but you can't take away those injuries. Jody, I don't see him being ready for week one. I'd be shocked. I mean, you never say never in this business. I've learned my lesson with that. You just
all right. Then let me restate my question.
Yeah.
Week 10. Let's say the Eagle offensive line play is not bad. It's not great.
Okay.
Better than it was last year because guys are actually staying on the field. So that should make it better. But it's not like they're dominant.
There he is.
Week 10. There we go. Yeah, he's back. Week 10, Landon Dickerson's ready to go. Offensive line, I think, is not playing well. Is that where you were going, Jody?
Yeah.
And you put one of the things we've seen with quarterbacks, Adam, Carson's upset with Jalen. Aaron Rodgers is upset with Jordan Love. Russell Wilson's upset for other reasons. But nonetheless, Jason Kelsey and Brandon Brooks got to know, guess what? Landon Dickerson is replacing one of them in 2022. How does that affect the psyche?
Well, Landon Dickerson, just for the record, was drafted to replace Kelsey. That's 100% what the thought process was. Now, that would be interesting, John, if we want to move this forward here, extrapolating the information. I can't see them benching Kelsey. I just can't. It would have to be. I understand it's a new coaching staff. Now, Statlin's his own line coach. He was retained.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they did that. Now, strangest things have happened. But remember, Brandon Brooks, we'd reported a year ago that to keep an eye on his contract because the reason why he was going to be back this season is because he had an advance guarantee on his contract. His base salary is fully guaranteed a year in advance for the season. So he's going to be on the roster. He was not going to be cut. After the season, there's no more fully guaranteed money. So I assume this will be Brandon Brooks' last year, and we know about his injury history. Great guy. What an amazing career and a free agent acquisition in 2016 for the Eagles, but he's missed a lot of time. I would think Dickerson would go there. Isaac Seumalo, the Eagles love him. I don't know what is out there. He's been one of the most amazing stories. I never thought he was going to make it. Let me just tell a quick story here on Isaac Seumalo. 17, the Super Bowl year, the word I was receiving was it wasn't good. He was not super confident in himself, wasn't practicing well. They didn't think he was going to be the guy. And then it was right when we started Inside the Birds. Our first scoop that we put out is that he's made this career turnaround. He's super confident. They think he's going to be a breakout player. He was. Look, he's never going to be a Pro Bowler. He's on that periphery of it. He's just a step below. He's not perfect. He'll have 2 to 3 games where you go, what just happened here? That's why he's not a Pro Bowler. But he's a solid football player. He's been, again, you're asking me this in May. I mean, things could change in 5 months. But, this is going to be a fun offensive line because you got the 3 older guys, and then you got Jordan Mailata, who's got a chance to be an absolute star. This kid is pretty interesting.
Now, Andre Dillard, I got to go that route.
Yeah, go there too.
Jordan Mailata. I mean, it is what it is. The Eagles moved up. They didn't do a lot of homework. I think that was a mistake on Andre Dillard.
Yep.
They didn't think he'd be there, and all of a sudden he started to fall a little bit, and they said, let's go up and get the kid. Is it time to give up on him, or is it going to be a legit competition between Andre and Jordan Mailata? And I will say this, Adam, because Jordan can play both sides. So Jordan fits in better as the swing tackle than Andre. I don't think you want Andre to be that backup swing tackle. So how does that play into it? Yeah,
it's a really good point, John. I hadn't thought about that because Dillard is really not the strongest guy physically.
Yeah.
With Mailata, the knock on him is he doesn't use his girth or strength always. He needs to get a little bit meaner, and he started to last season. It'll be technically a competition because they didn't trade Dillard during the draft. I'm not saying they were trying to trade him, but it would not have surprised me if they did because Jordan Mailata is the future at left tackle. That's kind of what I've known for a while. Now, unless Mailata has a bad training camp, which is not anything we could foresee, it's going to be Mailata, and then Dillard will be his backup. Jack Driscoll probably will be the backup right tackle. He needs to get stronger physical. The Eagles like him a lot. It was sort of a good find for them in the 4th round. He also, if he ever gets strong enough to play guard inside, that also something that he can do. But Mailata is one of these things, John, from going to practice. I remember his first practices in 2018. He had no idea what he was doing. Literally, the guy
couldn't put on a helmet.
I was just going to say, John, the first time he put a helmet on was for the team pick. Like they take a picture of you trying to figure out what helmet size he was. And then I remember later in practice when he started figuring out a little bit, he did some things you're not supposed to practice in OTAs. He started knocking guys around. I'm like, okay, if this guy could ever figure it out, who knows? And the Eagles first told me it was that Pittsburgh game. They could not believe what he was doing. That was the Pittsburgh and Baltimore games were the two games where no one thought he could do anything because there's no way he could play well against these great defenses, and he did. Yeah. So they want to expand his role. It would be a shocker if Mailata's not the starter at left tackle this season.
All right, Adam, I want to move off the offensive line. Not all that far, though, but off the offensive line.
Yep.
Just a little to the left, and that would be tight end Zach Ertz, who is, as I noted on my calendar, still here. Every day that Zach Ertz is still here, I do a little check mark on my calendar. He's been written off a couple of times over the last matter of days, matter of hours, matter of minutes. He's going to become an ex-Eagle, except he's not. Well,
we're in May right now.
Going to become an ex-Eagle.
Yeah, listen, we're in May right now. I'm still going to stick with what I said originally. I know people beat me up on it. I still don't see him on the roster in the fall. That was what I said in the end. I don't see it happening. The issue now is not interest in the player. The issue is his contract. We had a team we reported that told us that it comes down to this. They could not make the money work with his contract. Zach's making $8.5 million. I don't blame him for not wanting to take a pay cut. That's what his contract, his paragraph 5 says. That's his salary, the final year of his deal. The issue, though, is if for some reason he's on the roster this season, guys, at some point we're going to have to start talking about that. If we get to August, we're going to have to talk about it because that means they're going to have to do a lot of 12 personnel again. I know that's not what they really want to do, but if you're paying this guy $8.5 million, he's got to be on the field. I still think Dallas Goedert's role is going to grow, or not. He's going to grow regardless of Ertz is on the roster. But you know what? You got to play a lot of 12 personnel to justify that deal.
So let me follow up quickly, John. Thanks. Are you saying that because Howie Roseman came out and said what he said after the draft and made the statement about Zach Ertz, we still think he's a quality football player? And,
that's just hyperbole. Yeah, they do.
That's what I thought. But when you suggest that his contract is his contract, that makes it sound like the Eagles won't cut Zach Ertz. Is that not an option if they can't get anyone who will give them anything in a trade because Zach refuses to renegotiate ahead of time with the team they'd be traded to? You think there's a better chance they bring him back and have him on the team than actually cut him and eat the money?
Well, I would say this, and Roseman was asked by the media. It was actually a good question. I don't remember who asked it, but it was about post-June 1 designation in terms of cutting him. He shot that down. I mean, I can't remember that. I don't have the transcript in front of me. He kind of shot that down. So that was, by the way, by cutting the player, you don't get, he would be ineligible for a compensatory pick. So that I'm guessing would have something to do with it. This one is worth, let's sum this up. Let's move this forward. This is worth watching because this is the one trade piece to get a corner. I'm not saying a starting corner. No one's trading a starting corner for a 31-year-old tight end, which Zach turns this fall. But they also have a cap issue. For the first time in Roseman's career, they have a significant cap issue, obviously because of the pandemic and the inability to have the cap where it needs to be. We didn't get the rise in the cap that everyone wanted. So I would watch this cut. This is going to be a fascinating story. If Ertz is still here at the start of training camp, it's going to be a daily question, folks. You know it's coming. Yeah. John knows this from covering the team forever. Yeah. It's going to be a daily question. Zach's going to be asked. Nick Sirianni's going to be asked. If Roseman does any media, he's going to be asked. Is Zach Ertz going to be here in the fall? It's going to be a daily story because other than the training camp's battles, what else are you going to talk about?
Yeah, too much of a distraction, which is one of the reasons I agree with Adam. He's not going to be here. I don't know when it's going to happen, Jody, but it's going to happen. I want to shift sides of the ball. Adam Caplan, NFL insider, Inside the Birds with Jeff Mosher. Phenomenal job there. Sirius XM. We got the Adam Caplan show on Twitch, too.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot. Oh, yeah, I just did it this week. I just want to say one thing. I could not believe the Eagle fans rating that thing. We started last Friday. Last Friday on Twitch. Also, Trey Wingo and Mark Schlereth are doing a show. Some ex-NFL players are doing a show there. But anyway, that one did not have a lot of Eagle fans because they opened it up to everybody. No, we opened it up to everybody. But then last 3 shows, if I got 100 questions, 80 of them for Eagle fans. It's just comical. They come out everywhere. I get it. It's all good.
Yeah, they come out. And by the way, I also have to say, Adam's an old school wrestling guy.
Yes. Oh my God. One of these stories.
I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to sneak in something at the end. But
before
that, I got to get to the defense. I got to get to Jonathan Gannon.
Sure.
I don't see a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. Fletcher, Brandon, great players, still playing at a high level, but post 30. I think Javon Hargrave is a pretty good player. But I got to tell you, Adam, I look at this back 7. There is not a ton there. And outside corner, opposite Darius Slay, that's the one position.
Good luck.
They didn't address. We're talking about Zach McPherson, a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
What are they going to do at corner?
All right, let me start with this, and we'll see if this. I believe this is correct. I found this hard to believe, but I was told Monday morning that the Eagles did not sign an undrafted free agent corner. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I was told that unless they sign more players, they didn't have one. John, you're right. This is probably, and I say this kindly as I can, though it's not going to come out nice. This is probably the worst group of outside corners other than Darius Slay I've ever seen here. I've covered the team since 2000, maybe, something like that. This is bad. You're right, John. You nailed it. I mean, if I'm Jonathan Gannon, I know the wide nine is going to be junked. They're playing a different front. They're going to play what's called a move front. They're going to the Zimmer front is you move guys around a lot to create matchups, and it's going to be more of a read and react front. We've heard. If the front doesn't get there, they're probably going to give up an average of 2 touchdown passes per game at a minimum. You're right, John. It's going to be ugly, and I understand it. Listen, when you make a decision that you're going to trade up for a receiver and not a corner, this is what you get. This is what you get. They had an opportunity that I'm told they talked to the Bears. The Bears, as you know, we're talking just about every team, and they'll talk to the Eagles, I'm told. The Eagles did not pursue that trade. Now, I would tell you that if you traded down, the type of player you would have got where the Bears were picking is going to be significantly different than the player they got in Devontae Smith. That's why I thought it was a smart move not to do that and try to get a first-round pick. I don't know how deep in talks, though. I should clarify here. I don't know how deep in talks they were with Chicago. I just know that from Bears, they called them, and they were pushing every team to do it, and the Giants did that trade. But you would not see the kind of player at where were the Bears picking? 19? 20? Yeah, you were not going to get anywhere near the type of player that you got in Smith. But getting back to the secondary, look, this is the way I see the Eagles' corners here. You've got Slay, who's the number one corner. Then after that, at outside, you got a bunch of 4s, 5s, and 6s. That is not good enough in today's NFL. But this teams will tell you, John, you know this. It's May. Let's see what happens in mid to late August. Roseman brought up before
Darby,
that. Yeah, Ronald Darby
trade. Yeah.
Right, but you can't count on that. Yeah. You can't count on that. That's where I disagree with him. And then other than Ertz as a trade chip is not going to get you a starting corner. What do you have to trade other than future draft picks?
Let me follow up with a cornerback question for you, Adam. Sure. Cre'Von LeBlanc. Yeah, I know some people liked him more than I did. I absolutely know some people liked him less than I did. Of a lot of guys that they've been shuttling in over the last couple of years, I thought he gave you a chance to make a play every once in a while. Any chance? I know it's a whole new coaching staff too, so the familiarity thing goes out the window. Cre'Von LeBlanc returned to the Eagles. Any shot?
Well, yeah, here's the thing is he's a backup slot. He just doesn't run well enough. He's a tough guy. Positional versatility. He can play. He's played some safety. He's not an outside corner. I don't see the point of it unless you. If Avonte Maddox is to play outside again, I mean, not only would I be shocked by that, then I just don't. McPherson. I mean, we'll see if this turns out to be right. Right now, he's going to have to start on the outside. I don't see anyone else who could start on the outside opposite Slay. They just don't have anybody.
Mike Jacquet, Adam. Mike Jacquet.
If that happens, John, you ever hear the coaches say the bullseye is going to be on him?
Yeah.
They would be targeted like 20 times a game. That can't happen. He's a total project, former receiver who's trying to play corner. That cannot happen.
Now, you mentioned an interesting thing, Adam, with the front, the move away from so much wide nine to a movement front, Mike Zimmer-like movement front. One of the things that piqued my interest in the offseason was the move of Jannard Avery to linebacker. They drafted, I think it was Patrick Johnson, who was an edge player at Tulane, and they called him a linebacker. They drafted the kid from LSU, who was a safety, called him a linebacker. What does this mean? Am I making too much of this, or is Gannon going to do something a little bit different, especially at that Sam linebacker position, where if you have somebody like Avery or even it's hard to imagine a 7th-round pick getting on the field and being consistent, but nonetheless, that type of player, are we going to see that blitzing multiple front type of player versus what we've typically seen with the Eagles?
Yeah, it's a good point, John. I do believe that'll happen in some sort of fashion. Patrick Johnson, I know he's a 7th-round pick out of Tulane. He has pass rush ability. That was the thing. In fact, I know teams had higher grades on him in the 7th round. Avery, look, he's got long arms, but he's short. Other than that Niner game where he's incredible, he hasn't done anything here. It just does not work. I'm gonna continue to say the same thing with Avery. He's a 34 outside linebacker. That's the way he should be used. Look, James Harrison, who was also sawed off like Avery. Yeah. Harrison's shorter than Avery. Harrison's 5'11", and he was a tremendous football player. He's a stand-up outside linebacker. I don't see it working. I get that they're going to play the strong side. You could use these guys as rushers too, and typically the strong side guy will drop into coverage as well. I just think this is a defense that's in transition. This scheme is so different from anything I've seen here in a while. It's going to be fascinating to see. And one thing I do want to say, though, on both sides of football, this is the theme of our show on Inside the Birds that dropped today. There are so many jobs open. It may not be a good thing, but this is an opportunity for a Corey Clement type guy to come in there out of nowhere, whether it's an undrafted free agent on either side of the football, to not only make the team, to actually dress. There are so many jobs open, top backup jobs, receiver jobs open, D-line jobs, defensive end jobs, 3rd and 4th defensive tackle jobs, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th corner jobs. Guys, this is why it's a team in transition. Do you guys really believe that the Eagles can make the playoff season? I don't see it in any way, shape, or form.
Well, not with that back seven. Not with that back seven on defense.
Nick Sirianni's got to be happy because it sounds like a lot of competition for jobs, which is exactly which is his number one tenet. I want to take you quickly away from the Eagles into the NFL.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers, the saga continues, and everybody's weighing in with an opinion on it. Is there any chance that they mend fences? I asked you about, can Zach Ertz actually be on this football team? Can Aaron Rodgers, as far as this goes and continues to go, almost gets a wider chasm on a day-to-day basis? Is there any chance of a putting it behind him and reuniting between he and the Packers?
Jody, I would say this, and John, I would say this. It's similar to the Carson Wentz situation in that the player had an issue with the organization. This quarterback has an issue with the organization, but this is not anything new. Here's an interesting story that I was told by a source from a team that played the Packers last season. Rodgers goes over to the opponent's defensive huddle. He didn't get in it, but he got around it. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing from the source because I checked with him. I had heard this last fall. No, I wanted to check with the source last week when this ESPN story came out, and it's what the guy told me. He came over to the defensive side of that opponent. He said, "Get me out of here." And then I guess the players went over to the sideline and said, "You're not going to believe what Aaron Rodgers has said to us." And they didn't know what the heck to mean. Why would he say that during a game? So that just goes to tell you that Jordan Love drafting in the first round obviously bothers him. He says what coaches call him a super type A personality. He's a brilliant player, super smart, athletic, tough, going to be a Hall of Fame player, the MVP last season. But he's also not the easiest guy to manage. He had his issues with Mike McCarthy, which people have detailed for years. He's just hard to manage. And, he is one of the most stubborn players. I know from talking to people who've been around him, once he makes a decision, guys, he typically doesn't change his mind. This thing's going to be ugly come August. If he's still on the roster, they're going to take if they trade him, they're going to take a significant cap hit. This is, and the thing is, Jordan Love, when they drafted him, it was shocking because no one saw him going anywhere near the first round. Poor guy is caught in the middle of this. And isn't it ironic? You turn the page 16 years prior, and it was Favre and Aaron Rodgers. It's just remarkable that the story's happening again.
Same exactly.
Yeah. All right, Adam, can't let you go. And everybody should download Inside the Birds, watch it. Phenomenal podcast with Adam Caplan, Jeff Mosher, the Adam Caplan Show on Twitch, SiriusXM, Fox Awards Radio, all over, but pro wrestling, Adam Caplan. So I'm going to say, have you seen these A&E documentaries? We had Roddy Piper, Randy Savage. They have the ESPN 30 for 30 guys doing these documentaries. They are unbelievable. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you haven't watched them, go watch them.
I will. I saw the Dark Side of the Ring. I've seen those.
Those are great.
Because I was involved in pro wrestling on a very low level. I was just a guy who would ring the bell and bring the jackets back. But I told the story about Abdullah the Butcher and I got chased by him, and they didn't tell me that it was. I knew wrestling's put on whatever.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell me that he wouldn't hurt me. I didn't know. I was 25 years old. The guy's chasing me with a pitchfork. You should have seen me in my face. And then when Big Van Vader, the late Leon White, he gave me shoulder pads, and they didn't tell me that it was remote control. And he hit the remote control, and the sparks came out, and I fell over. This is at the old Philadelphia Civic Center. I actually had a concussion, the only concussion I suffered in my life, because I rocked back and hit my head because I was so shocked. But we're going to tell these stories in June, the real stories on Unsighted Birds when we have a little bit more time. But it was great. And I was actually in the original ECW the first year in '96. My job was to pick up wrestlers. That's another story for another time.
Did you actually say Abdullah the Butcher?
Yeah.
I did. Yes.
Adam knows Abdullah. Larry Shreve, by the way.
Larry Shreve. I love the real names.
Has a rib joint in Atlanta. Larry Shreve.
Exactly right. I think he's like almost 80 years old, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever told John this story. You usually did a wrestling segment overnight, Saturday nights on WFAN back in the 80s. And it got pretty popular, as a matter of fact. And my partner, Rich Mancuso, actually got us a wrestling gig. We did announcing for an independent show in New York with Nikolai Volkov and Abdullah the Butcher as the two headliners. Their days in the WWE over and done with. And Rich was the color commentator. I was the play-by-play guy. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But they said, Jody, just go out there. You watch enough wrestling. You can make it up as you go along, which I did. And we do the match, and it's Abdullah against Nikolai Volkov. And Abdullah comes, they both come out of the ring. And Abdullah goes to grab our monitor. Now, again, I'm doing this for the first time ever. I don't know all the ins and outs. So I just put my hand down on the monitor in case he doesn't know it's not a prop. That he's gonna pick, it's an actual TV, and he's going to pull it out of the cord and use it on Nikolai Volkov. So I didn't know what to do. So I just put my hand down on it like, no, don't take this. He looks at me. Of course, he's bleeding because he bled every match he ever had. He just shakes his head at me. I still have the jacket with Abdullah the Butcher's blood on it. Abdullah the Butcher bled on me when I did blow-by-blow of independent wrestling many, many, many years
That is ago. Awesome. In fact, I used to listen to you on overnights at the Fan with Rich, right? Rich Mancuso. Yes. Dude, I've known you. I followed your career since the late 80s, before you came to IP in the early 90s. Here's another trivia question. Do you know that Chris Russo used to be an IP?
Yeah,
prior to me,
a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know that.
WIP because of that, because his agent was my agent, and that kind of helped to get me to Philly. So one thing about wrestling is, and before we get out of here, is that if you're not part of it, they don't tell you that it's going to happen.
Yep.
So when I worked for WCW, Gary Michael Gupetta was the ring announcer, and this is when Flair went to the WWF. He would not acknowledge to me that he left, because he was a no-show. I was at that famous no-show at the Civic Center. It must have been 400 people. Nobody would go then. But long story short, they would not even acknowledge that he'd left to the other organization. And I was a kid, in my early 20s. They would not tell me the truth. It's just so ridiculous how they would deny, because if you are just a guy in the periphery, they don't let you know what's really going on in wrestling. I'll never forget that. Couldn't understand it. Kayfabe. Right. Exactly, John. Exactly.
Adam, great stuff. Appreciate you coming on board. We're going to tap into you early and often, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on with us today.
Thanks, Adam.
See you.
Adam Caplan here with us on Birds 365. And get used to it. McMullen's a big enough.
Got to get it in.
I'm as I said, once bled on by Abdullah the Butcher. So I've got my wrestling chops and cred too. It is going to pop up from time to time here on Birds 365. We'll come back. We'll give you a football note or two before we put a bow on the show. Stay right where you're at.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.